All right, guys, I think it's time that we have a small discussion about a few things here. And we're going to be talking about conspiracies within the true crime community. Now, I'm going to try to be as least insulting to the audience as I possibly could be. And I know that a lot of times I joke around about the Twinkies and the snack cakes and the cat ladies and shit like that. But I want to just kind of straight shoot with you and use a little bit of logic. Because I think in this community we have a real issue with logic. We have people that put their flag down on a particular position, guilty or not guilty, and they refuse to look at things from the other perspective. They refuse to change their opinions even in the face of facts. And then what they do is when the facts do not meet what their analysis is, they begin to create their own theories. We have plenty of examples of this, and we'll talk about it. I'm JB Gunner. This is Crime Time. This is a bonus weekend video. Let's go ahead and get into it. Let's do it. Son of a bitch, I forgot to plug in my headphones. Well, that's a motherfucker. Son of a bitch. Well, I guess I forgot to plug in my headphones. Fuck them. Anyways, guys, I'm JB Gunner. This is Crime Time. Before we get into this video, let me first and foremost say thank you to everybody that supports the channel. Hell, any of my channels, regardless of platform, regardless of method you choose, whether it's Cash App, Patreon, Venmo, PayPal. Truth is, guys, I couldn't do this each and every day as often as I do for the last 18 years on all these channels if it wasn't for you, the Gun Squad. Love you guys so much. If you too find my content valuable, feel free to hit the links down below. Support the channel. Join the Gun Squad. You can also find the links to some of my other content down there as well. All right. This is going to be a story. I am going to get you day 13 of the Delphi trial a little bit later. It may not be posted till tomorrow. Maybe day 13 and 14 because I think they're doing courts on Saturday. But listen, you guys know me. I followed this case. I followed a lot of cases for a long time. We can go back to the Brian Laundrie case. We can go to the... what was the woman's name that burned herself up? Damn, I can't remember her name. In fact, let me look real quick because I know I can find it. But guys, what I want to talk to you about is these cases, but kind of an extra portion of it, which is the audience. Debbie Collier. We'll talk about her as well. All right. Not just these cases, but the way the audience, who, let's just call it what it is. It's just a bunch of people that like to watch true crime, court TV. We're basically playing a game of Clue, and I've been open and honest about that since the very beginning. I'm not a crime fighter. I don't give a fuck. I'm just calling it like it is. You guys are the ones that virtue signal and say, we want justice for the victim. There is no justice for the victims. The victims are fucking dead. But a lot of you guys like to virtue signal, and most importantly, a lot of people like to be right about the cases. And I get it. It's a game. I get it. I don't like to be wrong. And the perfect example I'm going to give you guys is Debbie Collier. Debbie Collier, I do not still to this day believe that she set herself on fire. For you guys that do not know, Debbie Collier, she, on Georgia Football Day, went off and sent a Venmo to her daughter of $2,500, and then all of a sudden went and set herself naked on fire in the woods. Now, common sense says because her daughter and her daughter's boyfriend were dope fiends, that there was a little bit more to the story. But ultimately, the state and the government said that she committed suicide and that the children had nothing to do with it. And despite the fact that I still don't believe that. It's one of those things you have to accept. Did they ever provide facts to justify their end? Well, we don't know because there's no court case. Do you see what I'm saying? But they determined that her death was not a murder. Once again, I disagree with it. But at the end of the day, some facts, some statements, some determinations you have to take, and it just kind of is what it is. And we're going to talk about that with a lot of these cases. Now, let me make something clear. I am a conspiracy theorist. I am also someone that believes in independent media. I am not a mainstream media guy. But that does not mean that everything that the mainstream media reports is inaccurate. For a conspiracy to exist, there has to be a reason for it. Politically, we all know why there may be conspiracies such as JFK, such as 2020 election. There also is a good reason to have the opposite view for whatever political reason that you choose. Obviously, if you're a Joe Biden fan, you're like, no, man, 2020 was the most fair election ever. Obviously, on our side, we're like, nah, man, there was some fucked up shit going on in 2020. So, oddly, we don't get the election results on election day no more, and it's election month, not election week day. So, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. But let's go ahead and talk about these cases. Bryan Kohberger, Brian Laundrie, Richard Allen. What we see is a lot of people believing there are conspiracies, even though there's no reason to. You got to understand. For the people, a lot of people are like, man, the state of Idaho wants to frame Bryan Kohberger. By the way, I don't believe Bryan Kohberger did it. The first question that would have to pop up is, why in the fuck would the state of Idaho give two fucks about Bryan Kohberger and 4 college dead kids? So much so where they want to stage evidence and fake shit and do shit like that. Do you see what I'm saying? There's no real element to the case that would give reason for an actual conspiracy to exist. Same thing with Delphi. But we'll talk, because I know a lot of you will have different reasons for this, but a lot of times your reasoning has no logic. I just received a comment in my comment section, and it was about Richard Allen. And they said, he had to confess. He wanted out of that hell. And this is one of the dumbest, and no offense to the commenter, but this is one of the craziest reasons that I've ever heard someone give for confessing. And it shows the lack, and it shows the ignorance of the true crime audience. Because common sense tells you that confessing the murder won't get you out of prison. But I want you to understand that I've seen this comment several times in my comment section. They're like, Richard Allen only confessed because he wanted out of there. Out of prison? So he confessed to a crime that would put him in prison for the rest of his life? Do you see where there's this extreme lack of logic and common sense in this community? To believe that a person would confess to a crime to get out of jail, even though when they confess to a crime, they're going to be given more time in jail, is a completely ridiculous thought process. Now, I understand why people do it, because, like I said, nobody wants to admit that they're wrong. Lord knows that I have went back and forth with Richard Allen, guilty, not guilty. Bryan Kohberger, I consistently don't believe they have enough evidence to find him guilty. Same thing with Richard Allen. Even though I will openly admit there is more evidence that Bryan Kohberger is guilty than there is Richard Allen. At least there's Bryan Kohberger's DNA at the fucking murder scene, right? But at the end of the day, for instance, when we're discussing Bryan Kohberger, everybody's like, they're trying to frame him, it's a conspiracy. Well, then what gain would they have? Same thing with Richard Allen. What gain would the state of Indiana and the state of Idaho have to cover up these murders, and then just randomly blame it? And I know what you're going to say. People frame people all the time. Yes, but there has to be a reason. There has to be a motive. And that is one of the main key elements that I see within the true crime community, is that they don't actually use any logic and think about motive. For instance, we've seen people like the clown guy in the true crime and his audience say that people built tunnels underneath the house and then came up into the Idaho 4 home and then murdered the kid. And I've even seen people, perhaps even the clowns, suggest that the president of the University of Idaho did it. Because I've seen them point out the guy's house right there by the University of Idaho, and I've seen them literally suggest that there's tunnels directly from the house of the president of the University of Idaho to underneath the house of the Idaho 4. And that's the big conspiracy. That's the big cover-up, because the university's president wanted them dead. That doesn't make sense. Now, one of the best conspiracies I will say is when people say Richard Allen is being framed by a sheriff that was up for re-election and wanted to solve the case. Now, that makes a little bit of sense. However, whenever a conspiracy exists, you have to realize there's multiple facets. There's multiple people involved in the conspiracy. And this is why most conspiracies are eventually outed. So let's take Delphi, for instance. I want you to think of all the experts and the psychologists and everybody that's coming to testify. Okay? You believe all of them? All of them are into the conspiracy? All of them are part of the conspiracy? I think a lot of times when this shit happens, you also have to look at the amount of people, because to convince a large amount of people to go along with your conspiracy, it has to be beneficial to everybody. One sheriff being reelected in the town of Delphi or wherever, that is not going to be beneficial to the hundreds of witnesses that the state technically has. It's not going to be beneficial to the correctional officers. It's not going to be beneficial to the warden. All of these places are in different locations in Indiana. Westville is nowhere near Delphi. Okay? And it's just the truth. Wabash is not Delphi. It's closer. But my point of this is there's absolutely no reason to believe that all of these people, including the correctional officers, would be part of the conspiracy. When you take a look at the defense's theory and the internet's theory, is that a bunch of white supremacists are being protected. I want you to ask yourself, what would be the logic in that? What would be the reason for the sheriff's department, the state of Indiana, the correctional officers, the warden, all of these people to be involved to protect a very small sect of basically a very small group in terms of Odinism and Odinists, and ultimately the white supremacist portion of that group. I understand there's a lot of libtards that like to scream white supremacy, white privilege, but come on, man. I want you to think about it. Think about what you're saying. You believe the whole state of Indiana and all of these different sects of the state of Indiana is all of a sudden trying to protect a group of people that most of you haven't even heard of until this case. Most of you have never even heard of Odin. Most of you have no clue what Norse anything about Norse, any mythology. Most of you don't have any clue who Odin is, or definitely not what Odinists are, and definitely not even that white supremacists had a part in Odinism. Most of you believe that Odinism now, you believe that Odinism is just some white supremacist sect. Trust me, take it from people that really get into white supremacy. Nobody knows who the Odinists are. Nobody really cares who the Odinists are. People involved in white supremacy don't know who Odinists are. Actual racists don't know who Odinists are. It's a very small group, all right? Very, very small group. And you believe the entire state of Indiana and all of these different locations have all these people conspiring to put the blame on another white man, by the way, Richard Allen. Now, do I believe they have enough evidence to convict Richard Allen? No, but I think they've drummed up enough emotion from the jury and from the audience. I do think they will convict Richard Allen. Just like when it comes to the Idaho 4, I do not believe Brian Kohlberger will get a fair trial. I do not believe they have enough evidence to convict Brian Kohlberger. However, they will. Remember what I told you guys a long time ago about the PCAs, and you guys argued with me then? I told you that when you read a PCA, that's usually 85 to 95% of the total evidence. And you guys were like, no, they're saving some blockbusters for trial. No, probably maybe 1 to 2 to 5% of what they have may be saved for the trial. For instance, when we're talking about Richard Allen, the whole white van theory, that's a trial. That's the only new information we've got in the entire trial, other than the confessions and things like that. Is this introduction of the new white van theory that interrupted the murders. It's literally the only thing that has been introduced that we for the most part didn't already know. Would you agree with that? With the Idaho 4, it's going to be pretty much the same thing. Everything in that PCA is the state's case. That's why I say, and I've always said, they don't have enough evidence, really, to convict Brian Kohlberger. So how do they get these convictions? The answer is the same answer as how you can, when you look off at the internet crowd, the same reason that the people in the audience never change their opinion, even when confronted with facts, is the exact same reason why both of these gentlemen will be found guilty. Because it's also the problem I have with media, is once you install a belief in someone's head and they come to a conclusion, the guilters, Brian Kohlberger's guilty, Richard Allen's guilty, the odds, and I want you to think about all the YouTubers you watch, how many of them have really changed their position? There's only one. There's only one that changes its position as the cases go, as more evidence is produced, and that's me. Everyone else holds tight to their original positions, whether they're a guilter or non-guilter. There's two different ways you got to look at these cases. Are they really guilty, number one, or innocent? Number two is, will they be found innocent and guilty? Those are two very different things. And then also kind of a third thing, okay? Is there enough evidence? Like for instance, I believe Richard Allen killed these kids. I really do. I'm 75% there. But I just don't believe there's enough evidence to convict him. Do you see what I'm saying? Like in this particular situation, I believe if the court system was true to itself, then a killer would walk free. Richard Allen, I believe, is the killer for the most part. For the most part, I do have my doubts, and that's why he should walk free. Because if there's reasonable doubt, you have to not convict. I have reasonable doubt in both the Brian Kohlberger case and the Delphi case, so both of those people should walk, whether they're killers or not. Because it's no longer about justice for the victims, it's justice for the living. Whether you like Brian Kohlberger or like Richard Allen or not, whether you think they're guilty or not, they still deserve justice. Because that's the only people that can truly have justice or injustice, is the living. Is it justice to convict people even though there's a reasonable doubt? And the answer is no, we don't do that in America. So Brian Kohlberger and Richard Allen must go free. But here's the problem. Once again, I go back to the internet. The internet, much like people all over in real life, they refuse to admit that they're wrong. They refuse to admit anything that makes their position look wrong. You see it a lot in politics. You see it a lot in sports. You see it a lot here. Is that people are dishonest. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like when you're looking at sports. People believe that their team, this is the year for their team. And they refuse to admit, now we got a shitty running back and a shitty quarterback and our defense is mid-tier. They refuse to admit that. They're like, yeah, but that new rookie out of Alabama, he's going to do it. Basically, it becomes, there's a bias that exists. So like most of the people that are guilters, let's say in the Brian Kohlberger or the Delphi case, they've been guilters the whole time. Same thing with the people that believe he's innocent. And so no matter what facts, no matter what things they're confronted with, they will create something sometimes irrational. For instance, like I said, the thought that Richard Allen confessed to get out of prison. It's the most irrational thought that I think I've ever heard out of anybody in the audience. That you believe that he confessed to get out of prison. He confessed to murder, to get out of the place you go for murder. It's irrational. It's ridiculous. Here's the thing. I understand this is all a game. I understand you guys are the ones that virtue signal and say that you're just doing it for morality and all of that bullshit. I don't believe none of you. I don't believe none of you when you say, I just want justice for the victims. Man, take that, go protest somewhere else, dummy. All right? Nobody wants to hear that, and I damn sure don't, from a bunch of people that don't pay me anyway. Go, take that shit. Take that shit to all them YouTube channels that you guys try to recommend I watch. I'm going to say this to you one more time. I'm not watching any of the rest of these faggot true crime YouTubers. Do you understand? I don't get into this like you guys do. In my spare time, I do not watch true crime YouTubers. And I'm never going to, so please stop recommending them to me. Okay? This is your hobby. This is my job. I am here to present my commentary and my analysis on these situations. I don't give a flying fuck what a bunch of other motherfuckers think about cases or any news when I'm the motherfucker that covers the news in these cases. You should really go hear what Truth and Transparency is guessing about. You should really go hear what this person and this person is guessing about on. I got the same documentation, the same factual evidence as they got. The only difference between me and Truth and Transparency or Harsh or whoever the fuck is that they're making their guesses and spinning it in based on their theories. And I do it based on mine. I don't need to hear other people's theories. Now, someone like Andrea Burkhart, I do suggest you watch because she gets to go to Delphi and watch the trial, while me and you are waiting on the mainstream media or those people to report on what happened in a trial that we can't visually see. Do you see what I'm saying? But just another motherfucker giving their opinion, their theory, I ain't got time for that shit. I don't know how much time you motherfuckers have in the day, but I ain't got time like that, bro. I just emptied my storage. I got a whole fucking house to pack and unpack. I'm just being dead honest with you. This is your guys' hobby, not mine. My opinion is very simple, man. Fuck them other YouTubers. I don't have any negative to say about them, but I don't also, look, man. You understand, in my spare time, I watch wrestling and play video games and shit like that, right? And fuck women, you know what I'm saying? And have drinks. I do not sit, and even when I'm watching shit, I'm watching podcasts on shit outside of true crime. That's all I'm doing. The only reason this true crime channel even exists for me is because I do news. And so what I decided to do was separate my true crime content, my crime content, from my political and regular content. I'm just a news guy that reports shit. I'll save all the Inspector Gadget shit to the fake Inspector Gadgets. You know what I mean? But let me just make this clear. The conspiracies, not everything is a conspiracy, okay? Because ultimately you have to ask yourself, who the fuck of importance are these people? Listen, I do not mean this disrespectful to the Idaho 4, to the Delphi case, but who the fuck are they? You got to ask yourself, what's the importance that would require the conspiracy? What is so important about the Idaho 4 or the Delphi girls that would require a conspiracy and all these adults to cover up for it? And once you realize that in your brain, okay? Once you realize that the Idaho 4 and these two girls are just regular, insignificant is the wrong word. But on the grand scheme of things, we're all just numbers, bro. We're all just Social Security numbers. In the grand scheme of things, the 4 Idaho students and these two girls globally, and when it comes, is insignificant. That's not an insult. They're just normal people, like you, like me. So the belief that there's this big conspiracy, because they're so significant, there has to be a big conspiracy, is a ridiculous take. It's a ridiculous take, and you make us conspiracy theorists look bad. I understand, believing in a conspiracy theory, for instance, about school shootings or mass shootings, because you can look and say, okay, why would they do that? Well, to take the guns away. I understand believing in false flags because they've admitted false flags. The false flags are used as a way to drum up support to get us into war. I understand that. What I do not understand is why you people believe that there was a conspiracy to cover up the murder of 6 basically insignificant, just normal human beings. Where's the conspiracy? What's the point? And how did you get all these hundreds of people to go along with the conspiracy? Oh, I'm talking too much logic now, right? Maybe I should just be like you guys and say, Richard Allen confessed to get out of prison. Yeah. You see the type of shit I deal with? I'm just being honest. And I know you guys don't like when I straight shoot. You guys get pissed off and triggered and shit. That's fine. But at the end of the day, you got to realize this community is filled with weirdos. And I'm just the guy pointing it out to you. The other YouTubers ain't gonna point it out to you because they're hoping that they can convince you weirdos to pay them money. I think you weirdos should pay me money, but I'm not about to pander to you. I'm not about to make you feel like you're smart just so you pay me. You understand what I'm saying? Because the reality of this situation, when you make comments such as, and like I said, I'm not going to call out the person. They know who they are. And it's not just one person. But when you make comments that say, Richard Allen confessed so he could get out of prison, you've lost the plot, man. You don't get out of prison when you confess to murder. Y'all be having them Reese cups. I'm telling you, them snack cakes be a motherfucker. They just oozing it right. It's just oozing into y'all's brains sometimes. Look, man, this is just a bonus video. I'm gonna get it uploaded for you guys. I love you guys. Have a good one. If you guys like what I do here, you want to support channel, links as always is down below. But stop it, man. Not everything's a goddamn conspiracy. And sometimes you just gotta change your position. By the end of this Richard Allen trial, I may change my position again because I don't know all the facts, and neither do you. But you know what? The Brian Kohlberger trial may drop some shit, and I'm like, oh shit, he did do it. You know what I mean? Kind of like Leilani Simon. The Leilani Simon trial convinced me completely that bitch killed her kid. You see my point? Sometimes you gotta wait. You gotta wait, and you gotta be willing to change your opinions, man. It's okay to be wrong once in a while. I'm perfect. I'm a perfect human being. And I'm wrong once in a while. Take it how you want to take it. If you guys like what I do here, you find my content valuable, feel free to hit the links down below. Show some support, join the Gun Squad. Let me know in the comments section, do you agree or are you offended? Do you believe Richard Allen confessed to get out of jail? Woo.